Hey, Management 5650. I just wanted to give you some quick feedback on the first round or the first practice round, the only practice round before we reset. So, just a reminder it's going to reset at midnight tonight, and then you'll be good to go for all of the competition rounds. All right. I really haven't looked at these yet. This is kind of my first time digging into these, so I'm looking at these with fresh eyes. All right. I have the selected financial statistics pulled up first. All right. Couple of things I'd look at first. I mean, just raw sales. We can see that Andrews, Baldwin, Chester. I mean, we're all kind of still kind of sitting around a state of equilibrium. Digby took in a little bit less. Okay, but after one round, yeah, expect not to see too much separation. Profits 5 million, Baldwin 7 million. Chester taking in 303,000, a net loss of 11 million here. And again, I told you to be a little bit crazy with the practice round. Just play around a bit, have fun with it, see what happens. It gives me something to talk about here, so we'll dive into this pretty quickly here. Ferris barely coming out on top with a $9 million profit, 33.2% contribution margin. So looking pretty good right now over on this side. All right, this graph here is just a breakdown of what you're seeing here, okay, where all of this is coming from. All right, so just to kind of give you a visual aid in terms of looking at the financial statistics here. And then this is overall total market share across the 5 segments, okay? We are very close, all right, as expected after one round. All right, pretty equal across the board. Ferris taking in a little bit more, 18.5%. Andrews not far behind. Okay, and so good stuff there. Stocks and bonds market. All right, like I mentioned in the module, I I don't know. I usually don't get too much out of this page here, other than the fact that your stock price is a visual indicator of the underlying performance of your company. So I wouldn't stress about this too much, okay? Because if you make good strategic decisions, if you make logical decisions and generally are a good steward for your company, your stock price is going to follow here. Although, wow, Digby with a dividend yield of 13.3%. Yeah, I'll definitely be investing in your company here for sure. All right, but yeah, just so some selected information that you can go over. Again, I wouldn't stress about it too much. Bond market summary. Now, this is where you can take a look and get an idea what sort of debt financing strategy your competitors have. Okay, it looks like a lot of people or a lot of the teams, Andrews, Baldwin, Chester, didn't do too much. It looks like Digby took out an additional loan for 18 million or almost 19 million here. Looks like Ferris paid off one of their loans as well. All right, Digby probably doing this to finance some expansion if I had to take a guess. All right, we'll see that here in a little bit. Okay, Ferris probably wanting to lighten their debt burden or something like that. Okay, and again, take it all with a grain of salt. Debt is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, taking on debt as a corporation, if used properly, if used productively, can actually be more efficient, more beneficial than financing growth with just pure equity alone. Okay, so something to keep in mind. All right, don't be afraid of debt. Manage your debt responsibly, and it could be very helpful. All right, going into financial summaries. All right, we're seeing our just net income loss across the top here with our cash flow. Digby with an $11 million loss. I would hazard to guess that you're probably holding a lot of inventory. Okay, that's usually usually see that kind of the first round here, and then also your expansion efforts indicated by your additional debt that you were taking on there. So, a net loss in the first round, not a bad thing if you're fueling growth. So Digby could be potentially one to watch out for in the coming rounds here. All right. And so, yeah, we can see here that Digby's taking on a little bit of inventory. Erie, barely no inventory whatsoever. Okay. Other things. Oh, yeah, plant improvements. So, Andrews paid out 20 million. Baldwin 2.4 million. Chester did nothing in terms of investing in their plant, in their capacity. A large $30.5 million investment into their capacity here. And then it looks like actually Ferris sold off some of their capacity, resulting in a $15 million debit, okay, on their side. Okay, and here at the bottom we can see the net change in cash position. Digby, man, cutting it close. Nobody took out an emergency loan this round. $16 left in the bank. You don't even have enough left for a DoorDash order. All right, but wow, really, really cool. Ferris sitting on $24 million. Erie $17 million. Why would we care about cash balance? Obviously, it's going to give our opponents some wiggle room in terms of investing or investing aggressively, investing in different marketing campaigns, undercutting us in different product markets, investing in new products and things like that. So if companies are sitting on a large cash reserve, okay, you can kind of see that as a potential threat. All right. On the flip side, if they're sitting on a large cash reserve, maybe they're not investing it appropriately. Okay, they could be making more money if they were actually spending it on something rather than just hoarding their cash. Okay, so kind of two ways of looking at it. Andrews, no inventory whatsoever. So you sold out of every one of your products. Digby holding on $19 million worth of inventory here. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah, just going down through. Okay, let's see here. Income statement. Looks like we all had some expenditures on R&D and promotion. Ferris had some significant expenditures on R&D and promotion. Andrews as well. Okay, resulting in our final net profit at the end. So you go through and you pick apart all of these financial statements, you can start to glean some competitive information about your competition. Oh yeah, I didn't mention it here, but yeah, we can see that Digby took out a loan. Looks like we had a little bit of some current debt that was being borrowed by Andrews. Same thing with Ferris as well. So you kind of see where their priorities are at, what their financial strategy is shaping up to be. Hopefully you had a chance to take a look at this in the team manual, so you understand what this means. Essentially, it's just how much of your capacity you are utilizing. All right, you want to make sure that your capacity utilization is pretty much close to max as possible. You do, in real life, you want some wiggle room to absorb spikes in demand. Okay, but capacity that's not being utilized, it's just sitting there and costing you money in terms of fixed costs. All right, so it's an inefficient way of handling that. So if you're routinely underperforming with regards to your capacity utilization, it might be an opportunity to look at, wow, maybe I should sell off some capacity. Or if you are constantly utilizing overtime to the detriment of your company, maybe look at investing in some additional capacity. All right, I love this part here. So product information. Okay, you get a lot of good information out of this about your competitors. Now, again, I'm looking at the Capstone Courier. This is available to everybody. All right, so this is not privileged information. Okay, in some parts, I think it might be a little more detailed than what you could, you know, accurately gather as a competitor, but that aside, you're able to get a lot of information about your competition. Okay, so you're able to see how much they sold in each segment, the revision date, their perceived age of that products, all of their different performance coordinates, what they're pricing their products at. Okay, you can see what their material costs are at and their labor costs are in comparison to yours to see if you have a competitive advantage in that round. And then you can see how much capacity that they're going to have next round. So it looks like product Able into the traditional segment, they invested in a bit of an expansion here. Digby, we can see invested in an expansion here, okay, as well as an expansion here for their product Dell. Okay, so across the board. As far as inventory goes, yeah. So Duck and then Dune carrying a lot of inventory for Team Erie, Edge, Egg. Kind of decent amount of inventory, 279,000, decent amount of inventory carried, and that's going to be costing you some cash. So, look at your forecasting here. So it looks like in the high end segment, Digby was looks like they were forecasting on their best case to sell about 600,000 units, whereas everyone else on average was selling about 400,000. Okay, something like that. So maybe adjust your forecasting a little bit. All right, and then we get down into the nitty-gritty breakdown of each of the market segments. Okay, so the first one coming up here is the traditional market segment. All right, as we know from the quiz, the biggest buying criteria, customers place a lot of importance on this, 47%. They want their products around to be perceived to be around 2 years old. Okay, and the way that we do that is by releasing updated versions of our current products or bringing in a product in the high-end segment and then letting it go or drift back into the traditional segment. Okay, if you introduce a new product into the traditional segment, it's going to have a perceived age of 0. Okay, and it's not going to be as competitive in this category where customers place the most importance upon it. Okay. So if we look at our products, still pretty close. I mean, this is almost a negligible difference across the board, 18% versus 17% market share. Okay. Units sold to segment, 1.4 million, 1.3 million for Baker, 1.2 million for Able. Basically, everybody but Baker stocked out. Baker was the only one to hold inventory here. Okay. Essentially, I mean, not too much of a difference. The size and the performance coordinates are pretty, pretty much spot on. Fast. Your product is probably a little bit better positioned. Price is competitive. I mean, they're within $1.50, and price still a big factor here. Still a big factor here. So not anything to ignore. All right. But overall, pretty standard breakdown. Now, one thing I want to point out, all right, if we look at this, if we look at the actual versus potential demand, all right, we can see that Andrews, had they been able to fully service the market, they would have been able to sell this amount of product. They would have, maybe it looks like 21, 22% market share. Instead, they were sitting at about 20% market share, well, a little bit less, right? Now, the reason this is, obviously, is that they stocked out, but then we can see, if we look over at Baldwin, their potential market share was here, okay? Their actual market share was about 20%. So what this means is that customers were coming in, they were looking for Andrews products, they were looking for Erie's products, they were looking for Chester's products. They couldn't find them on the shelves. So even though it wasn't their first choice, right, they went and then they basically shifted their demand to Baldwin, a little bit to Ferris, and just a smidge to Digby. Okay, so that's how to interpret this graph here. All right, and it's the same across the board. In this one, Digby, you essentially had 2 products, okay, that were pretty well positioned. You had a very high potential market share, okay, but just didn't manufacture enough for this segment. So you under forecast in this particular segment here, okay, and the demand shifted to your competitors. All right, so missing out on some sales in this segment here. So for the low end, the most sensitive buying factor here obviously is price, right? And we can see that Ebb, All right, the market share leader here was one of the cheapest. All right, pretty well positioned. All right, things like that. Not far behind Cedar. I mean, almost a negligible difference in sales here between these two. All right, so essentially that's how to interpret these graphs, and it's the same across the board. All right, just looking at what our consumers want in this particular segment. Are our products delivering on that? All right, and do we have enough product available for them to buy? And then also don't ignore these factors over here. Our promotion budget is going to increase our consumers' awareness of our product. Our sales budget is going to increase our consumers' ability to actually access the product, get at it, buy it, purchase it, right? Which is all going to translate into a customer survey score, which is going to drive sales here. All right. Finally, the last two segments here, the performance market segment, again, pretty straightforward. Aft doing quite well in this segment with 19%, okay, stocking out as well. So there's a barely stocking out. So actually pretty spot on in terms of your forecasting here. So pretty good. Oh, and also if you see other products on the fringe here, these are products that are also selling to the segment because they're within that soft dotted line here. Okay, but they're not a primary competitor in this particular segment. All right. And then we can see some interesting variation across this. Agape and Fume, both positioned pretty much near the sweet spot. Andrews could be selling quite a bit more. All right, had you forecasted more for that for this product segment here? Okay, interesting stuff. And this last one here, the market share report, just takes everything and condenses everything that we've looked at in the last 5 pages, condenses it all down. All right, so we can see our market share, our units demanded. Okay, good breakdown here across products if you're a data nerd and want to really dive into that. And then finally, our overall perceptual map. All right, nobody introduced any new products here. Let me scroll up here. So what would happen is if anybody introduced a new product, okay, you would see a new product down here underneath their team segment. All right, but if it's not scheduled to go into production or sales, I should say, until the next round, what you're going to see is 0 values for all of these, meaning we don't know, or we won't know what the features are going to be, what market it's going to be positioned for, what price it's going to be positioned at. Think of it as like the company just showing a teaser trailer or like a teaser commercial for an upcoming product, but we don't really know what it's going to be. So always take a look, keep an eye on your opponents and see what they're doing, or try to anticipate what markets they're going to be targeting, how they're going to be targeting them, all right, and things like that. Okay, and then lastly, after the perceptual map, all right, we can see our revision dates and all of our characteristics and whatnot. You have 2 screens, all right? You have the human resources summary, and then you have the, at the very bottom, the TQM summary, so total quality management. These are not available to you to invest in until the second round. After round 2, you're going to be able to make targeted investments in things like recruiting costs. You're going to be able to set wages, benefits, annual raises, and things like that. You can't hire and fire. You hire and fire automatically based upon your plant capacity. Right? So if you introduce additional capacity, you automatically hire additional people. So since Digby built more plant capacity, we can see how they have 1,000 employees. I believe these are not in thousands. So you have 1,000 employees, okay, as a total complement. All right, and then what you're paying them. All right, so in round two, you're going to be able to make changes to your human resource management function. Now, same thing with total quality management. You're going to be able to invest in a lot of different things like just-in-time manufacturing, vendor delivering systems, quality initiative training. All right, I won't go into detail on all of these here, but in the TQM section of your manual, I would highly advise you to look at what investing in these actually does to your company. All right, investing in some of these is going to have a material cost reduction. Some of these is going to reduce your labor costs. Some of these is going to reduce your R&D cycle time. All right, so depending upon your overall strategy, it might make sense to invest in or target your investments in some areas of TQM. These two, the TQM and HR, are going to give you another strategic avenue, all right, with which to develop a competitive advantage, okay, over your opponents in the simulation here. All right. Overall, I think you all did really well. I hope you enjoyed the first practice round. All right. And like I said, at midnight tonight, this is going to reset. And then you will all have a clean slate. You'll be able to start from the beginning. You'll have all week to introduce your decisions for the first round. So thank you very much.